to the tiresome paper he wrote for, the Daily Bellower, or something like that was its name. And Mother, poor dear Mother, was away in Madeira, because she had been very ill. And the lamb, the baby, was with her. And Aunt Emma, who was Mother's sister, had suddenly married Uncle Reginald, who was Father's brother, and they had gone to China, which is much too far off for you to expect to be asked to spend the holidays in, however fond your aunt and uncle may be of you. So, the children were left in the care of old Nurse, who lived in Fitzroy Street, near the British Museum. And though she was always very kind to them, and indeed spoiled them far more than would be good for the most grown-up of us, the 4 children felt perfectly wretched. And when the cab had driven off with Father and all his boxes and guns and the sheepskin, with blankets and the aluminium mess kit inside it, the stoutest heart quailed, and the girls broke down altogether, and sobbed in each other's arms, while the boys each looked out of one of the long, gloomy windows of the parlour, and tried to pretend that no boy would be such a muff as to cry. I hope you notice that they were not cowardly enough to cry till their father had gone. They knew he had quite enough to upset him without that. But when he was gone, everyone felt as if it had been trying not to cry all its life, and that it must cry now if it died for it. So they cried. Tea, with shrimps and watercress, cheered them a little. The watercress was arranged in a hedge round and a fat glass salt cellar, a tasteful device they had never seen before. But it was not a cheerful meal. After tea, Anthea went up to the room that had been Father's, and when she saw how dreadfully he wasn't there, and remembered how every minute was taking him further and further from her, and nearer to the guns of the Russians, she cried a little more. Then she thought of Mother, ill and alone, and perhaps at that very moment wanting a little girl to put eau de cologne on her head and make her sudden cups of tea, and she cried more than ever. And then she remembered what Mother had said, the night before she went away, about Anthea being the eldest girl, and about trying to make the others happy, and things like that. So she stopped crying, and thought instead. And when she had thought as long as she could bear, she washed her face and combed her hair, and went down to the others, trying her best to look as though crying were an exercise she had never even heard of. She found the parlour in deepest gloom, hardly relieved at all by the efforts of Robert, who, to make the time pass, was pulling Jane's hair. Not hard, but just enough to tease. "Look here," said Anthea. "Let's have a palaver." This word dated from the awful day when Cyril had carelessly wished that there were Red Indians in England, and there had been. The word brought back memories of last summer holidays, and everyone groaned. They thought of the White House with the beautiful tangled garden, late roses, asters, marigold, sweet mignonette, and feathery asparagus, of the wilderness which someone had once meant to make into an orchard, but which was now, as Father said, 5 acres of thistles haunted by the ghosts of baby cherry trees. They thought of the view across the valley, where the lime kilns looked like Aladdin's palaces in the sunshine, and they thought of their own sandpit, with its fringe of yellowy grasses and pale, stringy-stalked wildflowers, and the little holes in the cliff that were the little sand martins' little front doors. And they thought of the free, fresh air, smelling of thyme and sweetbriar, and the scent of the wood smoke from the cottages in the lane. And they looked round old Nurse's stuffy parlour, and Jane said, "Oh, how different it all is!" It was. Old Nurse had been in the habit of letting lodgings, till Father gave her the children to take care of, and her rooms were furnished for letting. Now, it is a very odd thing that no one ever seems to furnish a room for letting, in a bit the same way as one would furnish it for living in. This room had heavy, dark, red stuff curtains, the colour that blood would not make a stain on.